Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Feminist Institute of Social Transformation's annual Florence Bird Lecture. Our hope is to feature prominent feminist scholars and activists working towards feminist goals of social justice and social transformation. And I can say already that we have achieved and surpassed that goal this year. And so I'm going to continue to tell you how. But I do want to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples, and we wish to honor our ongoing responsibilities to all forms of life in these lands and waters. Land acknowledgements are especially important in our roles today as learners and educators. I intend for it to be a meaningful and thankful acknowledgement and an affirmation of our commitment as an institute to anti-racism, decolonization, and recognizing the ways in which our presence upholds colonialism and reproduces the dispossession and violence against Indigenous peoples. This acknowledgement also recognizes the ongoing constitutive links between struggles against racialized precarity, white supremacist capitalism, settler colonialism, discrimination against Indigenous peoples, anti-immigrant sentiment, and Islamophobia. It sets our intention to continue in our limited capacity to challenge and dismantle white supremacist and colonial mindsets as we endeavor to work individually and collectively towards anti-racist and anti-oppressive teaching, research, and learning. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our 2024 Flowbird speaker, Professor Michele K. Lewis. Professor Lewis is a professor in psychology and one of the leading voices in Black psychology. We're honored that she chose our very small but mighty institute to be her host as the Fulbright Distinguished Chair of Arts and Social Sciences. This award recognizes Professor Lewis's accomplishments as an extraordinary scholar and top-tier researcher. She holds a PhD in psychology from Howard University and over 25 years of experience as a psychology professor, author, mentor, researcher, group facilitator, and just overall wonderful human being. She's a member of the Association of Black Psychologists and the HBCU professor in the Winston-Salem State University in North Carolina. She uses intersectional and interdisciplinary and biosociocultural approaches to understand human thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, including cross-cultural psychology and cultural neuroscience. In her time at Carleton, which is far too brief because we want to keep you forever, she is pursuing a project that centers Black identifying persons who commonly identify as SGL-LGBTQ+. Through virtual focus groups, she brought together US and Canadian participants to explore human connection, identity, spirit, and authentic expression. She centers non-Western frameworks in Black psychology, cross-cultural experiences, and cultural neuroscience among marginalized populations. I want to say that this event would not have been possible, obviously, without Michele, and your willingness and excitement, the tireless work of Professor Anne Spekovich, and Khadija El-Hali. Wave, you people. I also want to say, thank you, that it's been supported by FEMI as well, who's the administrator in the Institute of Interdisciplinary Studies. I want to recognize also the wonderful and incredible contributions from the Office of the Dean of Faculty in Arts and Social Sciences. Our dean's here. Go ahead and wave, it's fine. And also Professor Carol Payne, the Associate Dean, Research and International, and Nick Ward, who is Communications Extraordinaire, and his amazing team. And none of this would have been possible without it. And of course, our DJ, who I think Michele will thank. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Lewis.
Oh, you all are so nice. Oh, so wonderful. Yes. I'm going to keep my phone here just because I want to stay abreast of the time. And I'm going to also take a little time to acknowledge my special guests who showed up, which are all these people. And I especially, want to acknowledge them because I know that Laquan, raise your hand, is a graduate of Carleton, but but now lives in Montreal and has come to us from Montreal. And her lovely mother beside her. Uh, and Lindis lives in Scarborough. 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 And I met both of these lovely people through a online book club that started during the pandemic about 4 years ago, 3? Yeah? Okay. And I'd never met them in the real world until I moved to Canada, and so they have been like an adopted family for us while we're here. So we're very grateful. And next to them, Rick and Michele. And Rick is with us from Algonquin College. And I met Rick in downtown Ottawa. We're at the public library, and we were talking about higher education in Canada. And Rick is just...
I love you too, dear.
Yes, so we, and Michele is, you didn't want me to say, but a musician? Nah. A singer. Dabbler. And so lovely. And University of Ottawa, Rena. Rena is a psychology major at the University of Ottawa, and I met Rena over there when I did a talk over there. So, and I invited her, and she's here. Beside her is Delara, and Delara is also a graduate of Carleton. And Delara was a psychology major when she was here. And she also lives in Montreal, okay, and has come from Montreal. And Delara, I'm thinking, we met because you read a story about the Fulbright on the website. And she reached out to me, and so we just have a mentoring relationship now. So we'll stay in touch even after I leave, okay? And Ellie Sharma is another Fulbright Distinguished Chair here at Carleton. And I met Ellie at the Fulbright orientation. Ellie, I forgot what state you're from, though, in the U.S. D.C. D.C., that's right. How could I forget? And Kimberly is a current student at Carleton for another 2 months. And we met through Katie of FIST. Katie wanted us to connect, so that is how we connected. Shalika Miller. Shalika, you're supposed to be up here, but it's okay. Shalika knows Patrizia, and Patrizia and I met Shalika in January when she was our lovely host at a restaurant when my cousins were visiting. And Shalika is an aspiring comedian, and she's funny as hell. What? Yeah, but she hasn't gotten up the nerve yet to go on the stage, so we will encourage that, okay? And everybody, all of you who've come, please, I am so grateful that you've come, and because I know you could be anywhere doing anything else, and so you've chosen to come here, so I really appreciate that. So give yourselves a round of applause. Okay. Also, can I get some water? My mouth already feels a little bit dry, just so I could go get it myself, but I don't want to delay. I don't want to delay starting. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to, I have prepared remarks, but I also have slides to supplement what I'm going to be saying. Thank you so much. Oh, and I forgot to introduce my lovely beloved. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Okay, Dr. Mans, as she likes to be called publicly. I don't call her that at home. Okay. All right. So I'd like to start with a personal narrative history because I do want you all to know that my interest in this is due to a passion for the populations that get left out of much of the research, but also there's a personal connection to it, of course, for me. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to start with the personal narrative first. So during the late 1980s through mid-1990s is when I now realize, upon thinking back, that I began to notice my discomfort with language and categorizations used by my peers regarding gender expression and attractional energy. During these years, I was also a graduate student and early career professional. I was in my late 20s to 30 years of existence in this physical realm. As was common at that age, I was meeting new strangers. Strangers turned acquaintances, acquaintances sometimes becoming friends, and strangers sometimes becoming eventual spirits to whom I was attracted. The beings to whom I was primarily, not exclusively attracted to, were feminine energy beings. At this time in my life, I didn't have the consciousness nor a conceptual understanding of some of the questions that others regularly posed to me. These were questions such as, in the language of the era, what are you? Are you a femme? Are you a soft butch? Are you an aggressive femme? Are you a soft dom? I had no answers to these questions, and I had no understanding of why I didn't have an answer when clearly so many others did know. I understand now that these questions during that era resulted from persons attempting to make what didn't fit the standard narrative fit into an ideological box that was normatively socialized at the time, and thus others' human brains were doing what the brain does, trying to organize and make sense of me based on socio-culturally shaped understanding. In the absence of a conscious conception of myself, and I'm going to say more about this later, as an interactive cosmological self that comes from Dr. Maat in 2014, coined that concept, it is apparent to me now that on an unconscious level, when I felt discomfort regarding how to answer those previous questions about gender expression, it was because I may have been on my way up. Okay? I didn't know what was happening in terms of consciousness then. Today, I have an understanding of it as possibly what E. Bruce Bynum, 2012, refers to as an unfurling of a luminous matrix of reality. Who said, I was already out, to use the common vernacular at the time. Perhaps I was also forming a higher consciousness, which Bynum calls light consciousness. So this presentation will be a Maatian cosmological exploration of the question, who are we really, specifically as it pertains to persons, Black identifying persons, commonly referred to as same gender loving LGBTQIA+, in the physical Western world. So before I go any further, I want to say that I would like to dedicate this talk today to Frankie Knuckles, known as the godfather of house. And as you can see, it has been 10 years since Frankie transitioned. And I will mention Frankie also a bit in the presentation, and that's also why I wanted JL here. JL, would you wave? Because I wanted JL to assist me with sharing some of the sounds of Frankie Knuckles. And Frankie Knuckles was a New Yorker, but made his claim to fame in Chicago. So many of you are probably familiar with Chicago house music. Andreas, yeah. And so JL is going to help me with that. So thank you, JL. And everyone, let's thank JL for being here. Thank you so much. I forgot to say I met JL here at Carleton at the art gallery during the Faye Heavy Shield exhibit opening. JL was providing music there, so, and I'm always talking to people, so. All right, so here, I'm gonna go through like about 5 slides here in total as I go through the next bit of information. So Martin in 2008 described Maat as a comprehensive construct to include being a principle of order that informs creation of the universe. Because of its comprehensive nature, it has also been proposed as an analytical tool that relates to cultural expression. I align with other scholars who assert that studying classical African cosmological knowledge does not have to be limited to understanding ancient Egyptian or ancient Bantu cultures. Rather, it can be used as a construct to study cultures and humans across time and space. In so doing, Martin referenced a pattern of dimensions of Maat: visual, symbolic, functional, sacred, moral, oral, communal, rhythmic, holistic, multidimensional. My specific interest lies in how might these dimensions be utilized to have dialogue about collective self-conceptualization, human connection, emotional emancipation, and identity for persons commonly labeled Black and SGL, LGBTQ+. Now, I want to also share with you all that one aspect of how I think about this is with respect to, I am reading the letters, SGL, LGBTQ+, IA+, and I want to share with you all a quote from one of my colleagues, Dr. Anthony Butterfly Williams. This was said as we were jointly working on a paper, a small group of us, and some people, there were like 5 of us working on the one paper, and we weren't all using the same alphabets. And so we said, well, we have to make sure the paper has consistency. So what are we going to decide that we're going to use? And so Butterfly says, I suggest using SGL, standing for same gender loving, LGBTQIA+, since it is the most inclusive. But he adds, but my word, the queer community is going to need to move beyond adding letters to the acronym soon. So I want to also, I think this is, Mike, is this, if I do something with this? Is it going to play through the? Oh, okay. Let me see if that's going to, because I don't see the, the clip that shows that it's loaded as a video to play. Okay, it's okay, I can skip it. I wanted you all to see a little bit of Willie Ninja doing the Vogue moves, because Willie Ninja, also an ancestor now, also another New Yorker, Willie Ninja spoke about how not only did he pay attention to professional athletes, specifically gymnasts, but he also talked about how he was inspired by the ancient hieroglyphs in terms of the moves and the cleanliness of the lines, because some of the glyphs that he looked at, he loved the way that they were it was so linear and sharp, and he was known for the sharpness of his Vogue poses. Okay. Sorry. Let me go back. Trying to get to my water. Okay. All right. So basically, I wanted to show you a little bit of that, but that's just a regular YouTube video, so you all can find that very easily online if you just wanted to see Ninja. But what this slide is showing is how the, I feel like the Fulbright project that I proposed, it is showing how the cosmological beliefs and the cultural production, this is a reciprocal. And Willie Ninja is just one example of how his cosmological beliefs and his cultural and the cultural production of the dance that he created, or his specific style of voguing, they kind of fed off of one another. And so I'm also saying not only can we see this with artistry, but we can also begin to conceive of how you could actually do this with research. So that's what I'm doing, and that's why I asked JL to be here, because it's all the cultural production, the cosmo beliefs, and specifically the mixes that Frankie Knuckles did. I think we're very much tapping into some cosmological beliefs. Okay, so put that there so that I don't go forward by accident anymore. Okay, so there we are talking about who are we really. So that was kind of what I was thinking about as I was thinking about the acronyms, and I was thinking about you know, how people are using different configurations of those letters, and individuals are going through different processes and trying to figure out, like, you know, which letter applies to me, and then what if, you know, I feel differently across different space and time about which letter pertains to me. So all of that is a process, and so I wanted to just give some attention to that in the project that I proposed. Okay? All right, so why this particular population of interest? So psychologist Shelley Harrell has written extensively about soulfulness and about Black wisdom as a form of contemplative practice that can foster resilience, well-being, and liberation. She has not, however, specifically written regarding Black LGBTQIA+ populations. These members of the human family represent aspects of the human spirit experience requiring more focused research. The population and society at large can benefit from non-Western approaches to raising awareness, including raising self-awareness within the group. So I argue that developing a broader, more authentic and deeper awareness of oneself as a member of this group could enhance immediate somatic, emotional, and spiritual connections and wellness. So what I aimed to do was engage non-Western, culturally relevant, non-mainstream, contemplative practices in this research, such as described by Black psychologist Shelley Harrell. Such deeper attention may provide a glimpse into Black LGBTQIA plus persons, specifically as Harrell references as their transcendent truth, inner soul voices, and expressions of an emergence of their embodied wisdom. These forms of wisdom have all been addressed in Harrell's framework, yet unaddressed in work specifically with Black LGBTQIA plus persons. So Lindis and Laquan, you all know how in our reading group, we have a member in the group who thinks in formulas. Whenever he's going to explain something to us, we know we're going to get a mathematical formula. Okay? So I tend to think in these figures, and because this paper, the Kemetic model of the cosmological interactive self, it's a very kind of dense paper. And I read it many times, and I said, okay, I don't need a formula, but I need some figures. So Ba, the human's higher self. Ab, the unconscious mind, storage of memories. Our conscious desires, feelings, thoughts, performances. Our destiny/purpose. All of this is discussed by Dr. Maat in this paper. And the body is just thought of as the solid aspect of the human being, body/genitalia, the physical container that we all embody. But the paper is trying to get us to think about all of these different aspects of who we are. And much of who we are and how we engage with other people is not always conscious, right? So when I was saying earlier that people were asking me these questions back, and I didn't know what they're talking about, right? Some of what they're asking me might be something they're perceiving about me that wasn't aware, something I was aware of. But I think that happens with all of us, no matter, how we identify. And here, there's a part of the discussion where she talks about there's unlimited beingness of bodies due to nu and neter, meaning intersex, gender fluid, gender diverse, gender trans, asexual, pansexual spirits. Now, what does she mean, though, by unlimited beingness? Because some of you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? Like unlimited beingness. Well, non-gendered beingness, she says in the paper, could inherently apply to all of us. Now, underneath there, very faint, I have a picture of the world-famous RuPaul. And RuPaul has one of my favorite quotes. "We are born naked, and the rest is drag." So all of you are looking real good in your drag, right? Because we're all born naked, so whatever you have on, It's drag, right? And so this is kind of what she's getting at. She doesn't mention RuPaul, that's me. But I put RuPaul in because I love that quote, and I use it often and give attribution to RuPaul. But she also talks about Maat and attraction, and in the piece talks about this can be intellectual, psychological, emotional, sexual healing. All right? Is it okay for me to talk to the audience? I don't know what the flow bird, maybe you're supposed to. Okay. All right. So what is the, so when we, does anybody want to, there are people in FIST who specialize in sexuality studies. So the sexual healing, what do you all teach that when you teach that? What do you say about that? Or maybe you don't say anything about that. No? Huh. You don't talk about sex as healing, huh? Does anybody feel like that makes any sense at all? You do? Hmm. Okay, thank you, Dan. That's helpful. Because, like I said, I was reading it repeatedly. I was like, oh, what is, I need to know what this is about. and so I like that it was broken down in this way because, again, I think it makes space for, again, people who are sapiosexual, who they're only attracted to people on their intellect. And there is no, arousal or attraction based on anything sexual other than the intellectual. And of course, we know there are people who are asexual who they can be attracted, to people for a multitude of reasons that still doesn't include sex. So I like that this is sort of a comprehensive way of looking at, okay, who are you really in terms of what type of spirit are you? Let alone what your body is or which one of the alphabets you fall under, but, what's happening with your energy, okay? So every spiritual force depends on, attracts to, and connects with a complementary opposite spirit. This is what she says. Thought of as independent, but we are interdependent and interrelated to other complementing cosmological selves. So what you talking about there? The best analogy I can give you all to help you, get to the core of what she's talking about is all of you in here you've probably put together a jigsaw puzzle before. All right. Now think about how you complete a jigsaw puzzle. There's a piece that connects to another piece. But the two pieces can't look exactly the same, or they can't be exactly the same, or else they, doesn't work. So they complement each other, yet they are different in shape. And so what she's sharing in this piece is that the attractions sometimes will be people who are your opposite, yet they are the person you connect to. You fit, okay? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, what about this statement of birds of a feather flock together, like you're more likely to connect with somebody who's more similar to you, right? So what she's basically suggesting is, well, there's something that is complementary about that person for you. And so I think both and can be true, right? It's just, we've talked about it differently across time, okay? All right, so why Black African-centered psychology? This is the next slide here where we're going. So other scholars have also laid the theoretical foundations for projects such as my exploratory research. My Fulbright project embraces what has been discussed by Maat 2014, Nobles 2005, Bynum 2012 as centering the science of the cosmos and spirit science. The relationship of dark light consciousness for higher beingness. Black African-centered psychology is spirit science from a non-Western worldview and framework of understanding of what it means to be human. The field emerged in 1968 following not so subtle anti-Black racism within American Psych Association. Thus, the naming of the field as Black psychology in that context was a deliberate naming as an act of resistance to the dominant narrative and exclusion within the field of psychology. The field does not prioritize pathology, experimentation, nor otherwise exercises in positivism. Instead, its aim is illumination of the human spirit, optimal identity, and spirit as our essence. Pioneers of the field also emphasized that communal self-knowledge is the key to mental health. Thus, in this respect, this field has great potential to foster the personal growth and enlightenment of all humans. So, my Fulbright project incorporates ancient non-Western philosophical thought and spirit traditions that inform and represent comprehensive and cultural ways of knowing commonly discussed in African-centered Black psychology. So, Nobles talks about the process of learning the self as being in service to humanity and the collective. He talks about spiritness. Being a being of energy, of power, of human integrity, of spirit. And he talks about the deep, profound, penetrating search, study, understanding, and mastery of the illumination of the human spirit. Okay? So these are things I was interested in trying to explore with same-gender loving LGBTQIA plus people because I really, think, as I said about Dr. Harrell's work as well, that's not something that she has specifically talked about. Okay? Next slide, why cultural neuroscience? And then I'm going to show you how they all come together in the next slide. So cultural neuroscience is an interdisciplinary area of study that incorporates cognitive science, sociology, cultural psychology, and social neuroscience. A few areas among many that have been studied in cultural neuroscience are language, visual perception, music, mathematics, and social cognition. For this project, I am noting participants' use of language, emotional and cognitive reactions to music and videos, and their social cognitions related to key prompts, quotes, and concepts. Finally, in accordance with the spirit-based nature of African-centered Black psychology and my interest in cultural neuroscience, the pineal gland is an ongoing topic of interest that is also relevant here. The pineal gland, though not an actual brain part, lies deep in the brain. It has been called a spirit gland. Did you all know that there's a spirit gland? Wow. It produces N-dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, and is a tiny gland that sits in the middle of the brain. I've always found it to be an interesting gland since I first learned of it. It is one of the only glands that doesn't have half part in the left hemisphere and other half in the right hemisphere of the cortex. Therefore, it cannot be discussed in terms of right side pineal or left side pineal. It also, interestingly, appears in written references across varying times and cultures as relevant to higher consciousness and illumination of the spirit. Remember when I said in the intro, I might have been going up? That's what I meant. Thus, the pineal gland has been described as integral to spiritual, mental, and ethical development. DMT, produced by the pineal gland, is the first endogenous psychedelic. You all know what psychedelics are. But why is DMT so pervasively found in humans, nature, and animals? Could mysteries of consciousness be the answer? What is it doing in our bodies? Was the fundamental question of Dr. Rick Strassman in a 2001 book. Strassman described our brains as hungering for DMT by quickly letting it in and quickly using it. What is most fascinating to me is the statement that Strassman made that DMT is a spirit molecule. To be clear, what he meant was that DMT is a chemical for accessing spiritual realms of being, which is relevant to the ideology of Black African-centered psychology. Remember I said its focus is on our spiritual essence. So I'm interested in the pineal gland and scholarship on DMT regarding mystical, spiritual, consciousness type experiences. However, I am not interested in such experiences that derive from the ingestion of psychoactive drugs. I leave that to other people. Instead, I'm interested in what I have experienced to be psychoactive effects of the musical dance mixes of the artistry of internationally known Black gay ancestor, DJ, producer, remixer, Frankie Knuckles. Knuckles' mixes were heard prominently in the cultural realm of Black queer house music clubs in the 80s and 90s. Rick?
I've got a lot of mixes.
Okay. In the 80s and 90s, initially in Chicago and subsequently internationally. His mixes were known to have the ability to evoke feverish, collective, nonstop movement, dancing to pulsating rhythms. Anyone present felt something special with the energy in the club during the height of his popularity. A glance around the room resulted in seeing the crowd dancing with little to no talking. Those who experienced the effect were as if they were in a trance. What was the effect of Frankie Knuckles' remixes on the soul? Were these mixes stimulating the pineal gland in such a way that they led to a spiritual experience? This question derives from the pineal's positioning in the brain being so close in proximity to ventricles containing vital cerebrospinal fluid. The pineal is also close to the brain's emotional center called the limbic system. It's possible that the chemical release from the pineal gland has the potential to impact cognition, consciousness, and emotions. Could this be what was happening during the Frankie Knuckles experience? JL, will you cue Frankie Knuckles' experience so that we could just hear maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, no more than that. I might stop you before then, but go ahead. You all are welcome to dance if you want. He's coming in a minute. You feel it? How about Linda's Can Vote? It's okay. I'm so glad you're here. You were supposed to be one of my special guests sitting on the front row. It's okay. Nobody's dancing. So we can have more time at the end. Frankie just producing, and the mixing. Yeah, he's taking other recordings and putting his own spin and mixes to them and combining them in a way that it makes what I'm talking about with the spiritual impact. You feel it? Yeah, he's doing the mix. The singer, I think, is Sylvester. Yeah. I'm sorry. You can tell when it gets to 3 minutes, right? Are you going to give me it's up out there? Okay. All right, let's give JL a hand. Woo! And Frankie Knuckles. All right, so now I want you all to picture a whole club full of people just moving. You did it? Wow, okay. So let me go back. I feel like I'm missing something here. Never mind. Okay. So this is another visual. I make these things for me. I know that you all might be thinking, oh, that makes no sense to me. But I need this because I wanted to show how Maat's concept of the cosmological interactive self, and then when we're talking about cultural neuroscience and raising consciousness, like through things like meditation, dance, another black gay ancestor, Alvin Ailey, the famous choreographer, said, dancing is ancient, and it is how our souls move. And so I've told the people in my research project to always make sure they're keeping track of when was the last time they danced. And if they haven't danced, you need to infuse some dance into your life, right? Because it's your soul moving. And so this is the population I'm interested in, but I'm using these frameworks to conceptualize the questions and try to understand more about how they see themselves and if they can even conceive of themselves as a cosmological interactive self, and talking more about their energies and their spirits more so than necessarily their bodies, okay? And so this is the intersection of the three aspects of my project, and so I just wanted to show you all. These are various kinds of questions. Now, I haven't gotten to the meat of these questions yet with the participants, because as you're going to see in a moment, we just started on February the 4th because it took a really long time to recruit. And we have 8 sessions, and so I've met with them 5 times already. So what I'm going to show you all are just some spotlights on some of the moments that I have had with them so far. And then, so you see, these are the intersections, and so that is how my project comes into play. I'm kind of looking at the intersection of these 3 areas. And so you can see the kinds of questions. These are not my specific research questions, but these are the kinds of questions that came to my mind as I was conceptualizing the project that I would like to incorporate in one or more of the sessions when I meet with them. And so for the first 4 sessions, well, you'll see that in a minute. In the interest of time, I'll keep going. So the emotional emancipation circle is the specific procedure that is being used. It is sanctioned by the Association of Black Psychologists and the Community Healing Network, which is an organization, a separate organization, but they work together. And this is what I'm doing with the participants in a structured, semi-structured format, because the circles have a specific key that is the focus, and there's 7 of them. I wanted you all to also see the recruitment flyer that I used. That is what I used to recruit people, and as well as in person. As soon as we got here in August, or early September, we went to SGL, LGBTQIA event, because I knew that it was going to take a while to recruit people. So we met some people there, made some contacts there, and also a lot of online reaching out to people. I didn't really use social media as much because of the nature of what we're doing and the time commitment that's involved with it. I didn't want it to feel like just another thing you saw posted online and you expect people to sign up and commit to that. So I wanted to really make sure that really it was word of mouth, and that people were feeling like they either had met me or they met somebody who met me. Even Laquan put me in touch with some people in Montreal. And so it was very good to do it that way, so that I could actually have personal conversations with people and find out who they know and who they thought might be interested. So these are some of the objectives. Self-determined identity labeling, Africentric research methods, human connection, exploring. This is an exploratory project because, as I said, I understand it's a major commitment. It's almost like taking a little class, although it's not a class. And I work very hard to make sure it doesn't feel like a class. And because we do have the music, we have the quotes, we have the quotes from elders, ancestors, all of whom are people who identify as Black, LGBTQIA+. And then the exclusion items, so that because it's a lot of storytelling involved and you do have to have your camera on, I made sure that I let them know, if you have some kind of social anxiety, or it might not be like a situation that you might enjoy or be good for you, so we had to have those exclusionary items. As far as the tell us about you, so my objective was to get 20 people to say they were interested and to send back the informed consent, because I knew if I needed to recruit 20 or more, with hopes that I would end up with maybe 10, because I started recruiting people early in the fall of 2023, and with the understanding that we wouldn't begin until February 4th. And so we did get 20 people to send back. I'll quickly give you a little bit of who those people were, and all of those people did not continue to show up until the end. But I was very happy with who I got. So they were aged 20 to 48 years old. 7 of them said they had a high school diploma. 2 said they had some college but no degree. 5 a bachelor's degree. 3 a master's, and 3 a doctorate. When asked why they were interested in being a part of the Circle experience, they said the flyer stimulated their curiosity. Some said they were seeking more human connection and more knowledge about spirit and spirituality. And then there were some who said they were seeking to understand more about themselves. The U.S. cities represented were Charlotte, North Carolina, Oak Park, Michigan, Sacramento, California, Durham, North Carolina, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, other North Carolina areas unspecified. And for the Canadians, Ottawa, Edmonton, Alberta, Toronto. The Alberta, I was kind of surprised about that, but most of the Canadians are from Alberta. So I remember asking people, like, what do you all think? Why? You know, but I was happy. I'm happy, and I've been learning so much from them. So I want to show you, because I do want to move along. The reflexive thematic analysis is what I'm using to go through this. Right now, I am only on step 1. It is a very lengthy process. I anticipate probably throughout the summer of 2024, long after I've left Ottawa, I will still be working through this, because the meetings are 2 hours online, and to go back through the video and do all the notes and the writing, as you all know, like, it's taken me at least 4 hours to go back through all of that. So during the orientation on February 4th, I went over the objectives. The objective of the emotional emancipation circles is to defy the lies of anti-Black racism, in this case specifically anti-Black LGBTQIA plus information. We went over the rationale, and I asked them to name the positives and the negatives you've heard about us and from us. And I also asked them, why did they choose the emotional emancipation as of the start date, not going back to what they said on the survey. And these are some of the things that they said. Okay. This one's particularly memorable. I see lots of feelings from my students. Sometimes I want to scream that we are not inferior. And I'm hoping through this I can grow to be more comfortable with myself. Now, here are the negatives that they said. This slide is really significant because when we're doing the emotional emancipation circles early on, participants are always asked to name the negatives first, because the objective is to show them how freely they could spew the negatives. But then when you ask them for the positives, it's like crickets, right? So these are the things that they said in the orientation. The F word, the D word, that person in particular said, I don't want to say the word, I don't want to say it. Do you all know what words I mean? I was like, yeah, we know it. You don't have to say it. And you're betraying the race, association with HIV/AIDS, you're wrong. Your identity does not even exist as real. Gender role expectation based on appearance. And so who is the man in the relationship? It's always about who is the man in the relationship. It's always, well, we know why. So who is the man in the relationship? Black invisibility within the wider white LGBTQIA, the crabs in a barrel. One of the Canadians asked the other participant, ask a U.S. participant to explain what crabs in a barrel was. Is that, you all, you do or don't know? Oh, there's some people who are saying, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, because that's what I encourage them to do, is to always, like, there's no dumb questions. If you don't know something, then just say you don't know it. Like, even when we first started, like, we start each meeting with a pouring of libation. And there were people who said, unmute, what does that mean? Like, you know. So, but now that we do it and I explained it, which that surprised me, Lindis, I didn't know that. But it was the, yeah, well, they said they didn't know, they had never heard of it really. So it was not all of them, and it was, again, it was the Canadian, the people in Alberta. So, I'm not no diss on them. I'm just noting, you know, like, these are the things I have to write down, like when I notice where the comments are coming from. This also was one spotlight on a moment. A trans male circle member shared having recently been at a family funeral where a family member addressed the people who were gathered in the church. The person used the circle member's correct name initially, but made a pointed, deliberate decision to follow correct name with, but I'm going to always call you and know you as insert dead name. And so all the participants kind of gasped, and you could kind of see their empathy and just outrage at that. So key one, I'm just go quickly through these. Key one, this was on February 11th. Every key has an action that's expected. And so I'm just going to give you a spotlight on a moment. So the prompt was, they listened to, I don't know if you all know the song, it's pretty old. I'm sorry, JL, I didn't cue it, you know. But it's I See God in You from 2001, NDRE. Do you all know NDRE? Yeah? Okay. Do you know the song? Okay. Okay. So one day, so the prompt was, after they watched the video and listened to the song, and it was a lyrical video, so because I wanted them to not only hear the music, but to see the words. Could they name a time when they either had someone say that about them, I see the God in you, or they felt like they experienced that from another person, okay? And we make sure they know this, it's not about religion. Like I say, whatever God means to you, or, you know, if you have no practice, you just want to say higher power or your inner essence, whatever, you know. And so this is what one person said. One day in an LGBTQ plus summer camp, I dressed up for an ancestral ceremony. I really had gone all out with my outfit. Someone came to me and told me that I was their hero. And you should have seen the smiling and blushing when they said that. So I thought that was very nice. Also, historical moments and movements. The prompt, a video where they saw a short video from the Black Gay History Channel. Did you all know that there's a Black Gay History Channel? Check it out. Okay. Ancient Zimbabwe paintings depict a gay love. So here is the spotlight on a moment. The expected action, inspiration to defy the lies. So there's something that's more like regular within the rhythms of just how things are that is then depicted as every day. So I think I really appreciated that part of this. Well, you know, this is who we are and have been. These are relationships. Like, there's different kinds of relationships that have existed forever. And it's every day, you know, and depicted in the art. It's every day. So this video was showing ancient depictions in the artistry, even on some of the rock cave sites. There were pictures that could be read as same-sex love. Cultural origins. This was the prompt they received regarding this one was from the Belief Systems Analysis Scale. There are some people in my past whom I believe I should never forgive. And they had to respond to that. And this person says, personally, I believe forgiveness is for you, and that when you forgive someone, you're not doing it to absolve what someone else did. You're doing it so you can kind of let go of the burden of the hurt that it caused you to feel. When I think of forgiveness or forgiving someone, I do it for myself. This doesn't mean that we still have a rapport. I can forgive someone and never speak to them again. But I still forgive. And some of the other participants said, oh, I can't do that because I usually will try to make up with them. I want to forgive them and I want us to make up, but then I'm still angry, so, so they had some good dialogue around that. Prompt, write down a condition that humbled you, that put you on your knees. How did you work through it or not? And this was key 4, character and choices. I have taken for granted, as you all can see, I just had this on Sunday night, so I was like, oh, I've got to work. My beloved can tell you, I was thinking, oh, God, I'm tired. But I want to put the key 4 in the presentation. So I have taken for granted the importance of community. I need to take responsibility in terms of how do I get along or survive on my own when need be. But also for me, there is the experience of trying to determine how to ask or what to ask of people who I call part of my community. Like, how much can I ask of them? How do I show up in community where it doesn't feel awkward? It's been a struggle seeking help. Okay? So these were some of the questions. I'm sorry I'm going fast because I really want to wrap up. But these are the questions. I have at the end, you can always email me if you have any other questions. So the reflexive analysis to date, keeping in mind I'm still just at stage 1. There are 6 stages to reflexive thematic analysis. These are things that I can already, note. I have the folks in the group who are, Canadian residents, Canadian citizens, but these are their backgrounds. And, we've been doing a lot of talk about that. So like how they're saying, I can't really separate who I am in terms of my family of origins culture. And so they're kind of trying to work through how do they show up as their whole selves. And I of the things here, I kind of want to also talk about the no single issue living, because even though this is focusing on Black LGBTQIA plus individuals, a lot of the time that's not what we're talking about. They're talking about, community and, family, not even necessarily specifically in relationship to their gender or sexual identities, but just there's a lot of stuff that they want to talk about, and I see them trying to show up for one another. And almost every week, I have to go back to something from the previous week, because when I listen to the video and the audio, I'll realize there's something somebody said that wasn't quite clear. Like, I thought in the moment I understood it, but then when I go back, I'm like, what did you really mean by that? So, yeah, like this, like we've been talking about that a lot, because in particular, like just experiences with being uncomfortable, learning the language of their country of origin and not wanting to say what the language is that they're studying. Like a couple of people were trying not to say what language they were trying to learn. They would say my language or my family's language. And so I said, this is a safe space, why aren't you all saying the language? And they're like, oh, because we get tired of, in Canada, trying to explain where that is. What is that language? And people asking, what is that? Where are you from? And all of that kind of stuff. So that even shows up in the circles, okay? And so I would like to stop now because we should have some time to hear some more Frankie Knuckles and eat the rest of the food. And, and if you all have any questions, please feel free. Oh. Thank you.
Specifically, the Honorable Florence Bird was born in the United States and came
Oh,
to
yeah.
Canada to do her very important work with disenfranchised populations,
Yes.
women of various ethnic backgrounds and the prison population.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what you have learned, not only doing a cross-cultural study,
Mm-hmm.
but doing a cross-cultural study as someone who has come to Canada from the United States?
Thank you. I have learned, I can always count on her to give me like, I have learned so much. As a matter of fact, this morning from 8:30ish to 11:30, I was in a class called, I hope I don't butcher it, Racialization and Racism in Human Rights. Okay, and Professor Eve wanted me to come to her class, and the students were amazing. I learned so much from them because they had a lot of questions for me because of the nature of the class. They had a lot of questions about my experiences, personal experiences as a Black American, and I asked them a lot of questions. And we had a really good conversation. And I feel like the project is the reason I'm here, but I also came here with the intention to meet as many people as possible and talk to as many people as possible, as you can see. And so I have learned so much about just in the short time with the participants, and I'm grateful to them because it is a serious time commitment. And I already know they're special people to be able to commit to that for 8 weeks, and I tell them that every week. And they will be compensated for their time because I understand it is a major time commitment, and Fulbright gave me the money to pay them, so I can pay them. And to answer your question, I've really learned a lot, and I think that I'll continue, and I'll probably come to Canada even when this is over, just to continue learning and see other parts and meet more people and keep talking.
Michelle, I have the mic, so I'm going to pass
Sure,
it off
absolutely.
to people so we can record it.
So I have a question, and my question is, you said you have a mix of people from the States and from Canada. Are there any major similarities? Maybe that's an easier question, but are there any major differences between the two countries that you are seeing?
I do see differences, but there's a caveat. The Canadian participants are younger. And so in one of the sessions, we were having good dialogue, and I said, I said, may I point out an observation to you all? Yeah, I said, the U.S. people are, and you all aren't saying, should we? And they said, oh, we were just so focused on what they were talking about that we didn't realize that we weren't talking. But I also think it's because they're a bit younger than the ones in the U.S., so there might be just some, deference to letting the older people talk. But they're not like elder in the group, but yeah, older, like already past college age.
And the second question is spirit. Do they understand when you talk about the pineal gland, and does it resonate with people that maybe that's the bit I don't understand? I mean, I don't know if you're there yet, but I'm just asking.
We haven't got to the pineal stuff yet.
Oh, yeah.
Because the last 3 keys are where we start to go a little bit more deeper, so we still have to do key 5, 6, and 7. And I haven't played Frankie Knuckles for them yet. I haven't I haven't done that yet, but we're gonna get there, and that's a good question because I'll be mindful to make sure, because the libation thing kind of threw me off, because that was something I should have thought about in advance, that everybody may not necessarily know what I was talking about, but we had a good conversation about it.
So I have a question. What did you enjoy?
Never invite special guests. They're all asking questions.
What did you enjoy most about this work?
Oh, just the fact that it was able to be done. I was very worried that I had set a very tall order for myself. And on February 4th, the first night, I was so nervous because I was thinking, what if nobody shows up? Because some of them had signed up really far in advance, and I just wasn't, but I've learned that maybe what the pioneers of African-centered Black psychology say are true, is that to do African-centered Black psychology is to be divinely inspired, divinely guided, and hopefully divinely expressed. And so if you're doing something from that perspective, then, it all works out, in the cosmos. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just wondering, some of your. I love you too, Doctor. I was wondering if some of your. There was mention of sort of the mystical overlap of certain beings and the LGBTQ community, and of course, S2 Spirit is kind of originated from the indigenous peoples in North America, who, in some tribes, venerated the 2S LGBTQ people. I was just wondering if any of your research jumps the fence a bit into some of the indigeneity and origins as regards that mysticism.
Yeah, I think so. There's a book called Our Collective African Unconscious, where I have learned that we're all one people, collectively in our unconscious. And so I do think that all of that is relevant. And it makes sense to me that you will hear similar things across different cultural writings and understandings. Once you go up.
I have the mic now. And I have two questions.
Look, these are all the special guests asking questions. What if other people wanted to? I'm just kidding. Go ahead, please.
Okay, the first one is easier. I'll start with that. I noticed the art section of phonetic arts are mostly discussed today, like music and dancing. I was wondering if you have looked at any of the effect of visual arts, including fashion, like painting, photography, films and stuff like that. Any relationship between that and cultural connection?
Because I haven't with this project, but I certainly think there's space for that there, definitely.
Because apparently visuals are more closely related to emotions in our brains. I was wondering if that would take on to someplace.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. There's definitely space for that, because because what I did was the keys are the same for any emotional emancipation circle with Black identifying individuals. But because I'm focusing specifically on the SGL, LGBTQIA+, I try to use as much as I could put together to kind of deliver the keys. And there is a photographer, a Nigerian-American photographer. His name is Michael Awuna, and I've shown them some of his photography. And one of the contributors was like, I know him. I have one of his pieces in my house. But he has an exhibit where he photographed Black LGBTQIA plus people from all around the world, of various gender identity, and it's very beautiful. Like the way that he captured their images. This might sound corny to you all, but you can kind of see their inner essence, just his gift as a photographer. And so I asked them, to comment on how each image, each photo made them feel, or what kind of thoughts did it give them. So yes, thank you. I forgot I did have the photographer.
Second one was about the people you're working with. I wonder if they found any relation or like parallels between like the way their race is represented and the way their like sexuality and genders are presented or discriminated in their society. Any parallels that they notice is between the two? Because I've been thinking about how like all discrimination works the same way, and like realizing one of them could like allow you to realize all the other ways you're experiencing something, and it can like help like either exacerbate your emotional state or help improve faster. I was wondering if there's any like parallels people have like felt.
So
in
you're
their
saying like
journey.
if they are able to, I'm not sure if I
Connect there, like because both race and sexuality are feel like social characteristics, or like the part of things that we are defined by in our society.
Mhm.
So, and they are the things that get discriminated the fastest if you were to be discriminated for something, because they send out some of the things that are like most sensitive in society. So, and I've been noticing all discrimination, whether it's race, disability, gender, sexuality, happens the same way. You're just seen inferior due to not fitting the current norm for X, Y, Z reasons. I was wondering if like people find any parallels within their journey of healing from either discrimination.
So as I said, like I don't one thing I've already noticed is there are no single issues here. Like they are talking about, like there's a couple of people who are newly referring to themselves as no label, and but still they're not really sure, and some of it is around attractionality, but some of them it's around gender identity. And so I think that they're not separating it, but to answer your question, I don't think that anyone is, we're not talking about what else they have noticed, like in terms of like the separation and how, it's either similar or different. They're really talking about the aspects of themselves that they're trying to work through as a result of the oppressions that they are experiencing on multiple levels, either as being immigrants or trying to understand their gender, or some of them I think are, even though they're not using this word, I think some of them are kind of thinking about transcending gender altogether. So it's really interesting how in 8 weeks, there's only so much we can do, but I feel like because we spend 2 hours together and they're now quite comfortable with each other, that I am seeing some progression, but not specifically what you're asking about.
So this might be a ramble, so apologies. We'll start with that. I want to go back to the cosmology sort of conversation. And I guess my simple broken down question is like, are you also dabbling with like Afrofuturism? And I'm asking that in relationship to the cosmologies component, because the way that I'm thinking about this, and also, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your work. Like, this is really exciting.
Thank you.
But like, it's making me think of Afrofuturism in the way that I understand it. In that, like, your example of like Willy Ninja using the Egyptian hieroglyphs to like recreate those lines, to me is a memory practice methodology type of thing. So I'm wondering if some of the pieces that you're trying to put together in terms of like inspiring and or talking to your participants about like accessing this like pineal gland is also about tapping into memory to like recreate into a future moment. Again, ramble.
I think I understand. So I'm going to try to give a quick answer. So first of all, like from the Black psychology field, like we tend to think, in terms of, the past, the present, and the future are all one. Okay, and so I wouldn't say it's like Afrofuturism as much as it's trying to understand that we are a part of the whole, and the past, the present, the future are all connected. And even when we dream, these experiences that seem quite mysterious with dreams could also be discussed in relationship to past, present, and future in terms of our connections to our ancestors, the people we presently share the earth with, and the people who are not yet born. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Thank you for that question. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Amazing to be here with you. And also, Andres has more to add to my arsenal of reasons why we should have a disco ball in our department. We have a complete academic reason behind this now. Thank you. I wasn't sure about, okay, so when you talked about sexual healing, you sort of posed it as a question. And so I was wondering why. Okay, and then the other thing was I'm convinced that sexual healing has a lot to do with mysticism, witchcraft, and therefore the colonial desire to control it. And so part of that, I think, this is just like my three thoughts throwing together, is like, because it takes so much personal power and personal strength, and like spirit power, all of the power to be yourself when you are a self that is not of a norm, that maybe that connects with the sexual healing and the strength and the mysticism and the witchcraft in regards to being controlled.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's what I was wondering.
So to answer your question, I posed the question for that very reason, because I wanted to get feedback from you, because I'm still working through it, because I was talking about someone else's work, not mine. And I said I read that article many times. And I want to be able to talk about it in a substantive way with some degree of understanding. And so I pose it as a question because learning is always reciprocal to me. Like, I'm here doing the talk, but you all can tell me things that, can inform my thinking as well. So that was why I posed it as a question. That's why. That's the only reason why. Yeah, because I'm still trying to work through trying to unpack all what was in that reading.
I seem to have the mic. And I'm also a little bit the timekeeper. So Amrita and I were just consulting and saying maybe we have another 5 minutes or so for questions. So there's still time if folks want to take the mic. But then we also want to leave time for some more
JL.
music. And there's food and
Yes,
informal.
and I'm gonna
Does
eat.
that sound good, Michelle?
That sounds great.
Okay. Anybody else want the mic?
Thanks again for your talk.
Thank you for coming.
I know that. I know you've mentioned about the utility of LGBTQ plus. I know that in your participants, you're currently going through that data. I guess my question is, how do they see it? I know that you mentioned earlier that some are trying to go beyond or transform.
Yeah, that's my interpretation just by listening to some of the things they're saying. It seems like they're trying to work through, do I need a gender label at all? Yeah.
And the second part of my question is, you mentioned most of your participants are from Alberta. I guess my question is, I know that you talk about country. Are most of the participants in Alberta are they from the Caribbean, or are they from specifically? Most of them are from West Africa.
These are people who were born here or came here when they were very little.
Okay.
And they are East African and West African.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking that is this, from a cultural, I know that you're trying to understand how they understand themselves in, lack of a better term, diaspora, or in this new place that they call home. I guess I'm curious to the extent to which you're trying to understand LGBTQ plus, or their humanity as they understand it cross-culturally, the extent to which it's relevant or not. I guess I'm trying to understand the extent to which those different cultural locations shapes, for example, the meaning of libations, the meaning of LGBTQ plus, the meaning of everything that they do or embody.
I think that from what I can deduce so far, like they may be all on the same page as far as the acronym, but not the other aspect of what you said. Like culturally, there's not the same understandings of everything. And again, like I said earlier, I don't know if it's age because they are different in age, but I think it's more so trying to understand how to be for the ones who are in Alberta. I feel like they're trying to understand, how do I be the healthiest that I can be while I don't also want to disrespect my country of origin, the culture, my parents, the language, so on and so forth. They're trying to work through that. Okay.
Thank you. So this might be the question to end all questions, but based on the question that just came up, I was thinking, you said that the people in Alberta were younger, they were born there, they didn't come from, as a first generation, East African or West African, potentially. I'm not going to ask you about that, but what I'm going to suggest is, one of the things that we haven't heard about throughout your presentation really is the effect of religion and Christianity on some of the questions that are being asked. And the fact that, I mean, for me, when I came to Canada, my first job offer was in Edmonton. So people go to Edmonton because they need people. I'm in the medical profession, so they want you to go there because it's lacking a lot of services. And I can see them being there, because I've had other experiences with people in Edmonton who are not Caribbean. It's a lot of West African and East African people that go there. It's the quickest place for them to go, right? As either refugees or to get jobs, because other people don't want to be there, right? In a nice way, in a nice way. I declined my job offer there as well, so just to let you know. But the thing is, I think the other piece of the question of the pie is the question of religion and what that has to play in how you see yourself, identify yourself, the norms that are given to you as an African person, right? In Africa, and you come here, you're religious, you're Christian, you're Roman Catholic, whatever. Those things mess with your head, and then you've got the cultural norms of your culture in Africa that works simultaneously side by side, but here they don't show that as the outward way of being. So then you're left with Christianity, which is responsible for a multitude of sins. Least of all, what are you?
Yeah, and there is a person who also shared very recently that they are Islamic.
Right.
Yeah, I think, more than one. Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant while you were living in that town?
What's my favorite restaurant
What's your favorite restaurant?
in Ottawa?
Yeah. A little off topic. A little off topic.
Yeah, let me close it out. I better pick well, as we like to eat. Well, we went to this place recently that wasn't too bad. Oyster House, Playhouse. Yeah.
That's the old Elmdale. That's nice.
And yeah.
Maybe you should throw out the best restaurants that they should go to. Maybe throw the question out to the audience, Michele.
What's the best restaurant I should go to before I leave Ottawa? Oh, Chatan's. That place was good where I met you. That food was good, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so JL. Thank you all. Oh, Lindis is trying to force a standing ovation. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Yes. Huh?